you and I, during the COVID pandemic, talked about this often. We were both very frustrated with the censorship of information, the lack of useful information coming out of the Department of Health. I mean, I don't think they ever told us, for instance, that one of the most effective things you can do to protect yourself against COVID was go out and get some sunlight, get some vitamin D in your skin. I mean, actually, they told us the opposite. So we know all that. But we know the kind of thing that they were censoring, right? They were censoring things like anything to do with a treatment like ivermectin, for instance, where, which has been, I took it and it seemed to be all right for me. But very safe medicines that have been well proven and tested, or anybody who said, well, maybe you shouldn't take the vaccine. Those are the kind of things they were censoring, right? But we now know in hindsight that the kind of position that you would have taken and I would have taken, which is to let people make their own minds up about the vaccine, not force, not coerce them into taking it, was the right decision. That would have been the right decision for the government, right?
Yeah, and we don't know exactly what was being taken down. We heard yesterday that there were some things of that nature. I mean, there was even some suggestion that arrangements for protests may have even been interfered with, or, as you say, particular types of treatment. And I mean, look, there was, of course, a lot of animated stuff going on outside in the big wide world, and a lot of it would have been colourful, and probably some of it would have just been a bit off the beaten track and harmless. But, this is the problem when you start clamping down on free speech. They talked yesterday with those famous words, misinformation and disinformation. I've never been able to determine what the difference between those is, except that every single bureaucrat in the Western world seems to be using them now. But the question is, who decides what's misinformation? Who decides what's disinformation? It certainly doesn't, in my book, rest with a Department of Home Affairs bureaucrat, even if they're taking instructions from, the Department of Health. I mean, this could ultimately have been very, very bad for Australians' health. But my problem is, where does it go from here? We've seen so much of our freedom evaporated, and I think this is just another example of that. And so we'll be continuing to push on that. I want to know exactly what all of those entries were for, all of the 4,213, and I want to see the document. I want to know exactly what the procedures are for dealing with social media companies. We are now living in a very difficult environment where these big tech companies have so much power over what we see, and the Parliament needs to address this. I tried 2 years ago to get a Senate Select Committee up on this very issue, and it lost by a single vote in the Senate. I think it's time for all of these reviews to be re-reviewed.